You're listening to Stealing from Wizards, Volume 3, Kidnapping, by R.A. Consul.
Chapter 18. Deep Breaths. Deep, slow breaths. Be like Arthur. No outward expression. Stable face, stable form. The merest suggestion that Marie was the summer heir could put her in danger, and he would not risk his friend. He did not want to know what he knew. He didn't even know what he knew, but what he thought he knew was not a thing him knowing would be of any help to anyone. Kuro picked up the dropped photo and returned it to Pierre without comment or acknowledging he had even looked at it. "Do you want to go back downstairs, Isabelle?" "Yes," she said firmly, letting her brother know how terrible his actions had been. She marched away without even returning the precious scrapbooks to their place. Kuro followed. Letting the child set the pace kept him from running, even as he heard someone else climbing to the second floor. They met Marie's mother at the top of the stairs. She glanced at the mess left by Isabelle and the mitt full of memorabilia held by her son with weary disinterest before meeting Kuro's eyes. He smiled politely. She did the same. He was mistaken, he told himself, or else Marie's mother would be bothered by the photos in her son's hand. Besides, portraits were idealized. Makul had said so. Kuro had never seen a real photograph of the princess. Also, lots of people have a royal jawline. Sean does. He's probably not the heir to the throne. Besides, even if it was the princess, the lady in the picture wasn't Marie's mother. He was looking at her, and she looked just like her daughter. It would be absurd to claim they weren't related. "The others have finished their game," she said, "in case you wanted to join them again in the living room." Finished was a generous description. It had definitely ended, but there hadn't been a victor. An argument over a rules interpretation between Daniel and Julie had resulted in the board being overturned. Game pieces were dashed across the floor, along with any hope of resuming. Lady Ayn was trying to use its demise as a way to escape. Claims of schedules which needed keeping, refusals to impose, and desperate pleas that the sun was setting all failed in the face of the inexhaustible hospitality of Marie's father. Marie's mother, on the other hand, was much more eager to see them leave. That wasn't at all suspicious, Kuro told himself. The game had nearly destroyed their living room. "It has been very nice to meet you." Marie's mother presented the pile of coats along with an appropriately polite smile. "It was certainly a surprise." Saying goodbye to Marie felt like carving out his chest cavity with an ice cream scoop. "See you at school," was the best Kuro could muster, but he had no faith that he would. He didn't believe she was coming back. After seeing those photos, he wasn't sure she should come back. She'd be safe out here in the Blandlands, with her bland family. His heart rebelled, telling him that he was imagining things. Charlie had filled his head with fanciful ideas over their years together, and he was starting to believe nonsense. Perhaps convincing himself that she was the lost summer heir made it easier to accept the possibility of her leaving Avalon Academy. If she was the heir, he was helping to keep her safe by letting her stay hidden and secret out in the Blandlands. If she was just his friend, then she would be leaving because she cared about her little sister more than him. That was all the more painful because it was right. They were her family. Kuro wasn't anybody's family. Marie's farewell did not dispel any of his distress. "Bye," was all she said, and then she hugged him. It was like a wooden marionette hugging a dead fish. They never hugged each other, and Marie seemed to realize that as she reached out, but at that point she was already committed. It lasted just long enough to avoid looking like she'd touched a hot stove. The journey back was filled by the sounds of quiet exhaustion and the droning voice of Arthur. The effort of keeping up with the Akinwande family while pretending not to be wizards had been as taxing as climbing a mountain, except for their resident changeling, who spent most of his life pretending to be somebody. For him, it was an unusually easy day, as he didn't have to work so hard to stay the same shape in the Blandlands. So he spent the trip home reviewing the rules of the game they'd played, speculating on improvements, and entirely avoiding any mention of that terrible goodbye possibly being the last time either of them would see their friend. Kuro, on the other hand, stewed in silence, detangling what he'd seen. He tried to decide whether he'd actually seen anything at all. He argued himself in and out of believing that Marie was the lost summer heir a dozen times, interrupted only by bus transfers and a brief interrogation from Lady Ayn once they were safely back in her house. "Did you know she was from Belgium?" she asked the collected children. "Oh," Kuro asked. "From where?" "Marie's mother. She's from Belgium. Actually from Belgium," Lady Ayn said. "I thought you said they were from Toronto." "They were married in Toronto," said Arthur. "That's what Marie told us." "Why does it matter?" asked Moira. Lady Ayn found some composure in having to explain something to her daughter, though she still struggled against the loose-fitting and stretchy sweater she wore. "Because whenever someone from the Spring Court travels to the Blandlands, they pretend to be from Belgium. Nobody out there knows anything about the place or what their accents sound like, so nobody questions it. I made the mistake of saying that's where I learned my French, and spent the next 20 minutes trying to dig myself out of that hole." Dubois emerged from the kitchen with a wooden spoon and a savage grin. "I warned you not to underestimate folk out there. They're more savvy than we give them credit for." "Thank you, dear," Lady Ayn replied flatly. "Very helpful." Dubois gave a mock bow. "I live to serve. Speaking of which, dinner is almost ready." Kuro spent the meal trying to divine whether the hound knew anything more about Marie than he was saying. If he did, he hid it well. Mostly he just listened, which Kuro tried to find malicious. Was he a hound interrogating suspects and gathering information? Or a father asking his family about their holiday adventures? Could the two be separated? If his lack of suspicion was a performance, it was a flawless one. His concerns were not about Marie, but about his children. His questions ignored any aspect of her heritage and focused on their travel. It was infuriating. Dubois was the only person Kuro might be able to talk to about the summer heir. They shared in a conspiracy of ignorance about the heir's identity. If he could just get Dubois to explain that he'd checked and Marie couldn't possibly be the heir, those worries would be safely dismissed. He couldn't ask, though. That line of questioning could open the floodgates, force Dubois to investigate and potentially find out that Marie was the heir. Kuro had no idea what would happen then. All he knew was that the hound thought it better if nobody knew, and that may have been the first thing the two of them ever agreed on. Thus he was condemned to silence, to ponder what he'd seen until his dying day and say nothing, perhaps to never see his friend again, forever trapped in uncertainty. To add to all of that, he still had to do homework. He may be the only one in all the Fey realm who knew the secret of the summer air, and he still had to translate old elvish poetry into do multidimensional logarithms. The injustice of it was crushing. By the time they were in the car heading to the ferry docks, Kuro was feeling like his old self. That is to say, he was a wreck. He'd barely slept, and when he did, he was haunted by nightmares. His attempts at schoolwork were hopeless. The only thing that would ease some of Kuro's tension was to see Marie at the ferry port. He scanned the docks anxiously upon their arrival. Arthur and the girls joined him. It wasn't clear if Moira had followed out of habit of traveling with her brother, and Azalea as her shadow, or if the pair now felt somehow entangled in Marie's return. She wasn't there. She had said they would be picked up early to make their decisions. Were they late? Had she already come and gone? While his voice did not express his feelings on the matter, Arthur's drooping facial features and matted kelp-like hair did. "I'm not sure she's coming back," he said. Kuro had trouble doing much more than nodding. They'd both avoided the topic for the last couple of days of the solstice break, but with the imminent conclusion of their fears, it had become pressing to share them so as to better prepare if they came to pass. Charlie arrived, dragging her overstuffed hockey bag with an ornate saddle of white leather and gold strapped to it. I am so glad to see you guys. Solstice was the worst. I mean, not like the actual worst, because the food was fine and I do like my grandparents, but I think they introduced me to every Valkyrie and Enchanter in Alfheim. I get that they miss my mom, but they haven't figured out that I'm never gonna be her. I mean, can you imagine me as a warrior? Sure, it might not hurt if I get stabbed, but I think it's important to notice when it happens. And it's even sillier to think I'm gonna be an enchantress. That's all sitting still and tiny details. Have they even met me? Anyway, they gave me this giant saddle for Henrietta. Where am I even going to put it? Have you seen our rooms? I'm going to have to hang it from the ceiling. What? Why do you all look like that? Kuro exchanged a look with Arthur, each hoping the other would express their concerns, but they didn't need to. Charlie could read them. She is coming back, she said forcefully. Then, sensing more apprehension in the group, she added, Do you know something? She isn't here, said Arthur, and she seemed really happy with her family. I don't know if she is ready to give that up forever. I don't think I would. Kuro was thankful Charlie didn't press him directly. He was exceptionally skilled at saying nothing, but at lying, even muddying the truth, he was not. The bright yellow bus of fireflies rolled in, offering a source of hope. The Blandlanders filed off, disoriented by the vague sense of familiarity without any solid recollections to tie it to. Minders guided them to the squat brick building in which their memories were stored. Kuro held his breath as each emerged, hoping he would be wrong. Charlie tried a different strategy, breathing furiously through her teeth and willing the next person off the bus to be her friend. As the last firefly cautiously disembarked, though, there was no sign of their Marie, nor any other of the third years for that matter. Their absence spurred a furious search. They couldn't all have decided to stay in the Blandlands, could they? They found some of the other lodgers similarly fretting over the missing companions. Not on the dock and not on the bus. The group turned their final hope to the ferry. They pounded up the ramp to scour the innards of the boat, but were halted by a shout from the top deck. It's about time you got here. Sean Cassidy's orange hair emerged from over the railing above them, followed by his uneven grin, yielding celebratory cheers from both Gregory and Oliver. His complaints were echoed by Jennifer Tanaka, who appeared beside him. We've been waiting for ages. Magnus and Morgan chose to express their relief by yelling at Jennifer for hiding and making them worry. As the pair of Blandlanders noticed the worry in the eyes of Kuro and his friends, their exuberant greetings faded. We haven't seen her, said Jennifer, just loudly enough to hear. I'm sorry. Kuro and Arthur fell into silent despair, while Charlie expressed enough feelings for all of them. She shouted and cried and kicked the ferry as though it were to blame. The air became hot with her anger, and the boarding dock creaked. You can go visit her again, Moira said, in an attempt to ease the grief. Maybe you can, mumbled Charlie, her vigor having escaped. I can't move out there. You want to carry my limp body through the Blandlands? Azalea put a hesitant hand on Charlie's shoulder. She can still come see you, she said. Just because she's not coming to school with us doesn't mean she can't ever come to the Fey realm. Charlie sniffed grotesquely and smeared her sleeve across her nose. Thanks, she said, though it was cold comfort. Even if Marie were to visit the fairy realm, she still couldn't get to Avalon. At best, it would be months before Charlie could see her, and she'd have an empty bed in her room every night as a reminder. The voyage to school was dismal. Any discussion of Marie or her absence was too raw. Any discussion that didn't include her felt like a betrayal. The miserable weather and general atmosphere of gloom experienced by students who hadn't been away from school long enough to forget its horrors didn't help. The return to the fairy realm was somehow worse. The fanfare of bright colors and joyful aromas was inconsiderate and only emphasized their gloom. Charlie resisted going to her own room that night. She sat in the lounge, straddling her saddled luggage and working hard to be aggressively upbeat. Eventually, she ran out of people to share solstice stories with and was getting too tired to keep herself upright. Kuro helped her haul her things to her room. She flopped into bed, refusing to look at the empty bunk. It was cruel that the room still had some of Marie's things. Schoolbooks, notes, a lump of gold, her uniform, her dress shoes. You're staying, right? Charlie asked with a tiny, quiet voice. So long as I have a choice, he confirmed. They haven't expelled me yet, so my chances seem good. Might go be a farmhand for your dad if they do. Promise? Promise.
Thank you for listening to Stealing from Wizards. If you liked our show, please consider rating or reviewing on iTunes. If you want to support this podcast or just can't wait for the next chapter, the full book is available on Amazon, Kobo, and Indigo. Our theme music was written by Camille Saint-Saëns, transcribed by Franz Liszt, performed by Rebecca Verdun, and used with permission. This episode was produced by Jim Tigwell.